And a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Appreciate your patience here this morning inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios. I cannot thank you enough for being a part of the broadcast here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So thank you for being with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Of course, we are with you on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. Up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe. You will find us with you in the morning. And, of course, we have specialty shows that we do, like you saw last night with the Baldwinsville Bees girls lacrosse team. They asked fantastic questions, and we got to talk about life. We got to laugh. And I'm going to say something to Hodge in a minute because I apparently said something that was what I thought it meant, but it was something else. So we'll talk about how today's culture has changed some of the words and some of the phrases of what Hodge and I would know to what it is today. So inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, happy to be here with you. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Hodge is going to join me first here in hour number one. We're going to talk about the NCAA tournament. Caitlin Hadzimichalis was on site, on location for Tourney in Tampa, was down there for the women's Final Four for 2025 and the national championship. So she got to see awesome basketball. She got to see the championship that I predicted, but it didn't go the way that I had it at the end. So we're going to be joined by Hodge in just a second, the King's College women's basketball head coach. And then in hour number two, you will hear from Brandon Connor and his story, where we talk about sports and life lessons. If you're having a tough day, if you're having a moment of adversity, if you're trying to figure out how to get forward, I can truly honestly tell you that the story of Brandon Connor and the conversation that we have is one of those things that I really believe can speak to anybody this morning, including if it's chaotic. And if you're spiraling this morning, there's a lot to be said by Brandon Connor. So Binghamton men's golf, can't wait to share that special with you and his story. And we'll round out with the ingredients to success. And I'm excited to bring you that. So with that being said, we have Hodge on the broadcast, picture in picture. Miss Hadzimichalis, how we doing?
Doing well. What's going on with you, Dan?
I'm doing well. I got to okay. So I said something last night during the Baldwinsville Bees girls lacrosse thing. And it's funny because when somebody says something, right, and like most people in life, you say something, and if it makes you feel like out of place or it makes you feel uncomfortable, you never say it again. I'm the opposite. I'm like, let's say what I said and let's figure this out. So I was talking to one of the coaches, and I was saying, essentially like to go back in time or something like that, or no, or it was like I said a question to her, so I wanted her to send a question back to me, so I said throw it back, and apparently throw it back means something else now.
Yeah, nope. I would have guessed both meanings if you had said it, and also if one of my players had said it. So yeah, nope. You hate to see it right there.
So, I mean, I know what I meant. So, I mean, I was like, just throw the question. No, that's what I was like, when you're in the studio and you're like the sportscaster, you throw it back to the studio. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So, this is my question to you, Hodge. Why do people have to make everything sexual now?
It's funnier that way, I suppose.
Like everything now. Nothing is normal anymore. So,
No.
with that being said, from talking about throwing it back to throwing it back to the tournament and what you were just doing down in Tampa just a few days ago, bring me into obviously Division 1, 2, and 3 coaches have this wonderful chance to see the Final Four, to see the national championship. It's something that the NCAA does, which I think is incredible, and I applaud the NCAA for it. So just what you could say about taking the NCAA up on the opportunity to go out to the Final Four and the national championship as you are a coach in the NCAA world.
Yeah, no. So the Women's Basketball Coaches Association puts on a convention around the game, so you're able to go into the host town, and then they have different on-court sessions or classroom sessions or different events, networking opportunities, vendors, all that kind of stuff. So that's something that I've been doing since I got started in the job, and it's something it's cool so you can get a little bit of work, but also enjoy the pinnacle and the peak of our sport, be able to see it on court. And it's cool. Every couple of years, they'll do the championships for Division One, Two, and Three all at the same site. So it's cool to be able to go down and scope that out. I think the last time that happened was 2 or so years ago. They were able to do all three. So
Yeah.
this year was able to fly down. I have a couple alums who are down in the area for the tournament or live down there and have kids. So I was able to, on the personal side, get down and connect with some former players who now have, big time jobs and families and are hanging out. So but going to the games, I mean, great atmosphere. Everything, I think it ended up being the championship game. They said with the TV ratings, like one of the third highest watched games ever. The arena in building was sold out. It was just great vibes. You got two really, really strong fan bases who are going to go down. They're going to be loud. They're going to create an environment for that championship game. So it was a lot of good stuff. Really, really cool to, be fortunate enough to be able to take the time and go down and sit in the arena and soak up some of the best basketball in the world.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, for the opportunity for coaches to be able to go and do this and to be there and to experience it, right? Regardless of division, because I don't see division one, two, and three. I mean, you know that. I don't care. A coach is a coach, a player is a player, and everybody has a story to tell. And so to know that the NCAA in these moments and that the women's basketball, that there's such a care and a concern that Division One, Two, and Three all gets to be together, all gets to experience together. Just what that means to you as a coach. That there is no, well, you're D1, you're D3, you're D2. It's like, no, we're having this huge event. We're having the best basketball in the world, arguably, going on right now. We want you all to be a part of it.
Yeah, the cool part is the random connections you make while you're down there, where you randomly sit down next to someone during a session and you just start talking about coaching, right? Like you said it, right? Coaching is coaching, and you have players, you have similar situations. Sure, maybe at D1 they're dealing with a little more NIL and roster caps right now than we're dealing with at Division Three, but when it comes down to, building culture, figuring out how to prepare your players, how to take care of yourself as a coach throughout long seasons, all of that translates and you're able to build connections off of that. You also get the fun times where, if you're not going to the games or the men's games are going on at the same time, you go to, pop into a bar or a restaurant or whatever it is, and then you strike up conversations. Odds are that those other people are coaches or tied into coaching, whether, video coordinators, scouting, dobos, assistant coaches, head coaches, whatever it is. And you strike up really cool conversations, you meet really cool people, and then now you have another team to pay attention to and watch out and root for and get to know and pick their brain and whatnot. So it's really cool to kind of foster that. That's the whole point of having a coaching association, right? So that you can build that network and call on people, for help or whatever you want to research, or, if you're feeling like you're the only person who's dealing with a situation and then you mention it in passing at the convention, you hear other coaches being, "Oh yeah, no, I had to deal with that." And you're like, "Okay, cool. What are some things that you did? How did you get through that?" Or, "Here's my idea. Let me bounce this off of someone that has no idea what my team directly is like, but they know what it's like coaching at the college level." So you get more of that feedback that's that neutral third party, but still understands the job. Because sometimes when you talk to people outside of the profession, they're like, "Well, why don't you just take a break?" And it's like, well, you don't get to take a break. Your job is 24/7. Like, you need to make sure that you're giving the best possible experience to your players. Make sure you're representing your university. Like, you don't always get to take a break. So talking to someone who understands that, as that neutral third party, is always a bonus as well.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, you can build all these cool connections. Are there any connections that you built this time around? Anybody that you kind of reflected on and were happy that you talked with?
Yeah, I mean, one of the time we went to go watch the first round of games, and made friends with some people from Nebraska and who work on that staff, and it was completely random. We were just waiting to get in line to one of the watch parties and just struck up a conversation, and then we were the first people in line. We knew this place was going to be packed, so we're like, "Well, why don't we just commandeer one of the biggest tables? Have your people, have our people." And we just hung out, and you just talk and get to know people organically. That was really cool. to be able to do. I'm always reconnecting with the people that I know from the first part of it. One of my good friends is the assistant coach up at the Coast Guard. So being able to spend some time, scooting around Tampa to get to the next to the next place for lunch or whatever it is, and in between sessions is always nice. And then, you sit in on other sessions and you get to hear other D3 coaches, messing around with the same ideas of some constraints-based learning. So it's like, all right, let me listen to that. Let me shoot some texts and try to connect after this to one of my alums. Her younger sister was in the So You Want to Be a Coach program, which the WBCA and We Coach put on. And it's helping recent grads, like students that are going to graduate this year that want to get into coaching, and they put on programming for 2 3 days straight from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to try to get them going. So to be able to connect with a family that I've known for longer than 4 years, what would be probably like closer to 7 8 years at this point, and to connect with her younger sister who wants to get in the coaching profession, get to ask her about her sessions, offer up any help that I can do is always the really cool part. Because then that's who I got to watch the championship game with, because they had an extra ticket. They're like, hey, you want to come down? And yeah, absolutely, it's great family. Want to spend that time, want to create those memories, want to help young coaches get in the profession. So it wins across the board.
Yeah, and for you, I mean, it sounds so rewarding, right? Just it goes well beyond the basketball games itself, and those moments of watching the games because of everything's going on in the background. How has it made you a better coach? How do you feel like it's kind of put more tools in your toolbox, so to speak, as you get ready for another season?
Yeah, I think the part that always, especially this trip particularly, being able to connect with alums and connect with alums' families, and then, build more relationships out of that. It reinforces, I guess is the right word, that yeah, the relationships are what matter, right? Sometimes you get stuck doing it, and then when you go down there and you hear like all these different ideas, and you're like, okay, I'm focusing on trying to do that our way. And I got to go down. One of my alums, who graduated in 2013, was down, and she works for CNBC, and they put on some huge event. And the fact that she, wanted to invite me to go back and listen in on this event that had some big time players in the business world and the WNBA, and women's basketball platforms. Like, it's like, okay, this is a really cool opportunity because this player still has fond memories of me, still wants to stay connected, still wants me to be able to come out and see what she's doing on the job, which is just really cool. And then to be able to go out to dinner with them afterwards and meet some of their coworkers who are in the business. Like, that's the cool relationship side of it. And then, on the other basketball side of it, coming back with different ideas of leadership or different activities you can do with your team, basketball specific, ways to drill, ways to practice, way to create a positive culture moving forward, and not just throwing around buzzwords, and like actually how to do it. That's the stuff that I'm taking back. And we always say, and I always try to teach my assistants, when you go to these sessions, even if you can just take one little nugget with you, and it could just be how you say something differently. Basketball is basketball, but if you can explain something in a different way, or you pick up a new phrase, or you pick up a new piece of terminology, that makes it worth it. So going down on this week, I'll be going back through my notebook to figure out, okay, I really liked, instead of time management, one of the other D3 coaches was talking about it's more energy management. Everybody has time, everybody has, the same window to work with, but day to day, when you're taking care of yourself, how do you manage your energy, and how do you manage your players' energy and your staff's energy? That's more important. And then figuring out how that fits into time. So little things like that, I'll be able to take back, personally and professionally.
That coming here from Caitlin Hadzimichalis. We call her Hodge, and she was down at the Women's Final Four and National Championship in Tampa here in 2025, speaking about all of the awesome things that you can take with you. And you talk about these sessions, like what is the schedule like beyond the games? What's kind of going on throughout this time? Like, how many days are you down at the specific location, and what is the schedule like?
Usually it's like Thursday to Sunday is programming. There might be a few things that are invite only, maybe Wednesday, like that So You Want to Be a Coach program. But then they have, round tables to deep dives to on-court sessions to a vendor expo that goes on throughout the whole time. But it's usually like an 8 in the morning to like a 5 in the afternoon kind of thing. pick your own, make your own menu from whatever's being offered and fit it in. There's also like divisional meetings, right? So we're Division 3, so it's one of the only times that you can get a ton of Division 3 coaches in the same room, and you're talking about potential rule changes or legislation changes, or what's going on in Division 1 and 2, and how is that going to trickle down and affect Division 3, and what are our Division 3 issues that need to trickle up the chain, in terms of governance and um, dealing with different rules change years. Like this is a rule change year, so some of the proposals of what's going to be put out there and talked about and voted on, and trying to get our opinion, because Division 3 is the largest body of schools. There's over 400 and whatever 40 schools or so. We have the most, we have a ton, but we have different constraints based on the recruiting, the scholarships, and all of that. So throughout the whole day, there's so many different things you can pick. And then at night, different vendors will have watch parties of like a, hey, thanks for using our business. Come and watch the games, grab some appetizers and hang out with some other coaches.
Yeah. And to be able to do all of this, I mean, I think I would love to be a part of it, honestly. I'd love to just kind of see it and like drink in the moment, so to speak. So I think it's great that you've gotten to do it. I think it's great that you have gotten to have an experience that goes far beyond, like you said, when it comes to rule changes, when it comes to things happening at D1 that can trickle down, or NCAA D3 where you're coaching, where you need things to go up the chain. I think it's awesome. I think it gives everybody an opportunity to hear each other, and it helps to bridge the gap. And so I think it's great that this is done. And like I said, I mean, I'd love to be in the room. I've heard about these coaches meetings and different things that have gone on for years, and I'd love to see it. Is there anyone that you saw in the D3 world that you've coached against where it was kind of like, oh, hey, like I see you on the trail when it comes to recruiting, but then you saw them in Tampa? Was there anybody there?
Oh, tons. Every time. Like that's it's great reconnection of friends or people in conference. My assistant bumped into the former FDU, the Division 3 FDU head coach who won a national championship, when I was an assistant. She bumped into him and he recognized the logo, and they sent me a picture from, across the way, and it was just like, hey, Mark says hey, and I'm like, oh wow, you got to run into a national champion. Good stuff. You see other opponents that you play, whether it was this year, last year, just in the area, right? There's a ton of, bumping into people, checking in, and, people that I used to coach against. One of my good friends is the head coach at Vassar, and I used to coach against her when she played at Scranton, and she's having massive success as a head coach, and she's really good at her job. So it's always fun to pop into her, and just check in, see how she's doing. So there's a ton of Division 3 people, top to bottom, whether they're hyper successful and been doing it for 40, 50 years, or they're just getting started out in year 2. There's a lot of cross contamination, which is the cool part.
Yeah, yeah, and it brings people together, and I'm all about that. I'm all about seeing that. So let's get into the games. Women's Final Four, we'll start there. UCLA and UConn, South Carolina and Texas. UCLA, a team that comes in as a number 1 seed. UConn comes in as a 2 seed on one side, and then you have 2 number 1 seeds that have already battled each other in the SEC, and it was the 4th time this season that South Carolina faced Texas. So bring me into those 2 games. We'll start with UCLA and UConn.
Yeah, I mean, UConn, we'll talk about it when you get into the championship, but since their first South Carolina game where they kind of went on that run, they have just been gelling and going and firing on all cylinders. I think the coolest part is you got to see, leading up to it, AZ Fudd hadn't been, doing as much as people were expecting or wanting to see from her. So for her to kind of explode in these last legs of the championship run was just really cool to see. Tough one for UCLA. They've got to feel better after watching the championship game the other night, because it's like, okay, it wasn't us. Like UConn is just on an absolute tear. So Lauren Betts is obviously incredible. They have really, really good coaching. They have really good players. Kiki Rice, all these other players around it. But they just ran into the juggernaut that is UConn, and UConn was able to do what they do and kind of have that resurgence of, nope, by the way, we're still UConn, and they were playing with purpose. They were gelling. So, like I said, I think the happiest person about the final score of South Carolina and UConn had to be UCLA to be like, okay, wasn't just us.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's the thing. I mean, UConn has been. I mean, I going into the tournament picked them to make it to the championship. It's just them and South Carolina were the two that came to my mind, and they're the two that made it. I I just don't count them out. I think last year and this year, there's been this mentality that like UConn isn't as good. They don't have as much. They're not as competitive. And it's like compared to what? Compared to UConn? I mean, it's if they're not that good comparative to themselves, they're still better than the majority of the country. And I don't know. I mean, Paige Becker's the closer they got to playing for a national championship, the more I was like, she's not going to let it happen. Gino's not going to let it happen. That her last game would be anything other than winning a championship. And I mean, am I surprised? No. Am I surprised that it was almost 30 points? Yeah. And I mean, you go back and you look at that and you go to the championship game and you say to yourself, like, okay, UConn's up by 10 early. Let's see how South Carolina responds. But there was just nothing. There was no room. I mean, you could be good. There was moments where South Carolina drives to the basket, and it was a great move, but they're still down by a ton. They hit a big shot, but they're still down by a ton. It was, no matter what they did, it was like a drop in a pond versus a tidal wave. And
Yeah.
UConn has been an absolute tidal wave this season, as you made mention of, once they caught their stride. I mean, what is it about UConn that it doesn't matter who's there? I mean, Gino Auriemma, he has 12 national championships, and UConn has 12 national championships. They've never won one without Gino, and here's number 12. And here's number 12 when people are looking at everybody else. They're looking at USC. They're looking at UCLA. They're looking at Texas. They're looking at Tennessee. They're looking at South Carolina. They're not looking at UConn as much. How does this team just keep being so good, Hodge?
You have to look, like you said, Gino's been there forever with Chris Daly, right? I think there's something to be said for having that assistant head coach relationship at such a high level to be together the entire time. I think good assistants make programs, and obviously Gino knows how to manage talent. He knows how to get them physically and mentally and emotionally prepared for it. And you see all of the alums, like every time that there's a national championship game or something going on, or Gino when he broke the record, the building was filled to the brim with alums coming back. And I think that helps the younger players who are going through it in real time connect to the history and provide more purpose of what you're playing for, how you have to do it when it's hard. Like I was saying with me talking to other coaches, like when it's hard, you hear people of how they survived it, how they were resilient, how they went through it. And then I think you have to give that last piece for this year particularly to those players, like all the adversity that Paige and AZ and all of the like everybody top to bottom on that roster. You were talking about the resurgence of UConn.
Yeah.
Well, they've been making Final Fours and Sweet 16s, and that was with Paige hurt for 2 years. That was with AZ out. Like this core group had never played together. And then now you throw in Sarah Strong, who is the phenomenal freshman who's going to be this, like, if you think about it, this year statistically as a freshman is going to be her worst year. Like, she's only going to get better. She's only going to figure it out more.
Yeah.
So to watch them learn how to peak, and that's why it was kind of sloppy for them early on, because they've never, top to bottom on their roster, they had never played together. So I think from a coaching standpoint, that's where Gino is great at figuring out the pieces individually as players, what gets them ticking, what gets them moving, what gets them producing, and then fitting them together to make them realize, like, okay, you're excellent, but the program is what needs to move forward. And it's similar to like Don Staley and how Don Staley has been so quickly been able to elevate and put South Carolina on the map. Like I was watching the Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi show, and they were joking about South Carolina and what Don Staley has done. It's like they didn't know, Diana Taurasi was joking that she didn't even know South Carolina had a basketball program until Don Staley got there. she didn't think they had it as a school
Yeah.
because of how quickly she was able to come in and do the similar stuff that, Gino and Chris Daly had been doing at UConn for years. Is they create a culture, they create professionals, they bring in stellar human beings who also happen to be great at basketball, and then they instill even further culture and how to do things, why to do things, the purpose behind it. And oh, by the way, they're really good at player development and the X's and O's and how to manage talent and how to build a program. So I think that's how, Gino's been able to do it. Great. He surrounds himself with great people. And oh, by the way, he's very clear in what his goals are, what his mission is, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. He knows the standard and he then watches and forces the behaviors to meet that standard. And if they don't, he doesn't care who you are. He's going to bench you and enforce the standard. And you are responsible for those behaviors. It's the same as Dawn Staley.
Yeah, I mean it. And Dawn Staley on the other side, because we'll get back to UConn in a second, 4 times facing off against Texas. It's hard to beat a team once. It's hard to beat a team that you beat once, twice. It's hard to beat a team that you beat, more. I mean, it is so difficult to see a team, as you know, as a coach, 2 times, 3 times in the same season. 4 times is unheard of, but here they are going up against each other, and great matchup, great game. South Carolina found a way again. Dawn Staley she is something. And to sit here and talk about Gino Auriemma and then to not say that Dawn Staley has positioned herself, arguably, if Gino is in the top 2 coaches in women's basketball, that Dawn is the other one. I mean, there are other coaches, and I'm not going to discredit or take away from other coaches in other programs. I'm just making a case here. If we're looking at the top 2 women's basketball coaches in America right now, is Gino and Dawn. And Dawn, I don't want people to look at that championship game and think that she can't, because obviously she can. She has done so much. And in that Texas game that you were on site for, I'd love to get your thoughts on how it all went down and how South Carolina came out with the win.
Yeah, and I'm gonna one up you on that. Where yeah, Dawn and Gino are easily 1 and 2 on women's basketball. They might be 1 and 2 in like college basketball, period, because they've built the success. That was the first national championship Dawn Staley lost. Like,
Yeah.
and Gino's only lost one national championship game that he's ever coached in. Like that's going into some generational coaching talent across all sports, but absolutely in college basketball. And then you want to go to the South Carolina Texas game. You said it, like going against conference opponents is always different because you know everything about each other. There's everything that how do they play? What are they running? How are like personnel tendencies? Like there's nothing that you don't know, especially once you get into the fourth time, especially when you get into the national tournament. I think the foul trouble early on, gotten into it a little bit for Texas and maybe got them to lose some of their momentum. They were able to, sustain it early on. There was a lot of, small leads going back and forth. And then, South Carolina was able to just play the way, like Dawn Staley's adjustments. Like people want to say, oh, she's not an X's and O's coach. Like, no, like, girl, she can coach. It's not about like, oh, they're good at X's and O's. Like, sometimes you hear it in the NFL a lot, like, oh, that's just like a player's coach.
Yeah.
It's coaching. Like that's not, I think some people throw that at Dawn as a negative. And it's like, oh, you're saying that she can pull the best out of her players and knows everything that they are motivated by and what she needs to do when and where and how. And then, oh, by the way, she puts them in like positions to succeed with halftime adjustments and gets them jump. Like it's just crazy to me that people will downplay that, or like in the national championship game talk about how Dawn was like frustrated. It's like, yeah, girl, she's allowed to be. But back to that Texas game, you saw that's where I think South Carolina was inconsistent this year. When they were making shots and were able to consistently score, that's when they were able to go on those runs, right? The beauty of South Carolina is anybody can beat you on any given night,
Yeah.
but the double-edged sword of that is, all right, great. Against Texas, when they figured it out and everybody's going, it is absolutely brutal to play against. And that's where you saw South Carolina build that lead. And then on the flip side, when you go against UConn, since it's anybody on any given night, well, if nobody's filling in that role, it becomes what it is, and it becomes very hard to score because you don't have that go-to rely on where they've had Aaliyah Boston in the past, they've had Asia Wilson in the past, they've had all of these greats, and UConn did a great job, defensively on them. But it wasn't because, Dawn didn't have them in the right positions. You saw her making adjustments, switching matchups, switching, how much are they defending, AZ off the ball. Like they had, aggressive people on, and they were trying to switch and find matchups. So Dawn was making moves there, and it wasn't their night in terms of that UConn game.
Yeah, and that's it's so hard to see it because how good South Carolina is, and how good of a coach Dawn Staley is. And so to someone who doesn't watch women's basketball, they think, wow, South Carolina, they're not that great. I mean, they just got blown out by UConn in a national championship game. Look at how, like you said, look at how frustrated Dawn is. She's allowed to be frustrated. I would be frustrated too. We got all the way here, and we're playing our worst game at the worst time. And, it might sound crazy to people, but I watch that game and I think the score is 82-59. I watch that game and I see both of these teams, and I see UConn win by almost 30, and my reaction is they're still the two best teams. I didn't look at South Carolina in that game and go, wow, they suck. Wow, they're not that good. They're so many levels below UConn. I looked at that game and I said, South Carolina's really good, UConn's really good, but UConn just they had another gear, and they always it's crazy to me. Like UConn, it's like if you look at a car, and let's say there's 3 gears that you can shift into. Let's say gear 1 is you're going to go regular speed. Gear 2, you're going to pump it a little bit more. Gear 3, you're going at lightning speed. There's a gear 4 to UConn, and I don't know how to say it any other way. I mean, there's something about the UConn Huskies women's basketball team that whatever anybody else does most of the time, they have that 4th gear. And just because you didn't see it at certain points this season, and just because they lost to Tennessee late in the regular season, and just because they didn't win a national championship last year, people thought that gear was gone. But the reality of it all is, I guess my best way to describe UConn is check your car and realize that nobody has gear 4 except for UConn.
Yeah, and I think the other part too, with that game with UConn and in South Carolina, it was an 11-point game somewhere in the middle of the third quarter of the championship game, and South Carolina had the ball, and it was one of those things where we're sitting there like, all right, if they go and get this score, I don't know I think it was the media timeout, maybe in the third quarter, or someone had called a timeout. And we're sitting there talking back and forth of, all right, well, South Carolina, they just got the stop. If they get the score, they cut it to single digits. That's some momentum you want going into, the end of the third, start of the fourth. And South Carolina missed the shot, or, UConn turned them over, whatever it was. It didn't end up in buckets for South Carolina. And then the next second you look up and they're down 18. Like it went like that. Yeah. And it was because I think UConn just defensively stifled South Carolina aggressively. And again, it wasn't for lack of what South Carolina was doing. They were hanging around, going back and forth for a little bit. But you said it, UConn got into this different gear. They saw whether it was sharks seeing blood in the water, they smell it. They're like, nope, now is that shatter point when, all right, we can decide to coast around 8 to 12-point leads, or we can kick it into that gear, bust through the glass, hit that shatter point, and now you're up to 20. And then you can feel that next one. All right, there's another shatter point. Now you've got to bust through and get to that next spot. So we talk about shatter points all the time, and you could just see these shatter points, whether it was South Carolina trying to break through or UConn being like, nope, we're going to put our foot down. It just kind of kept growing and growing, and that's how that lead ended up, exploding for UConn, because they found that 4th gear you were talking about, and they crushed through those shatter points where South Carolina just struggled to put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that you call them shatter points. I mean, it's because it brings it to life, and it helps you to really see it. Who is UConn? You know what I mean? And you said, You said that Gino Auriemma and Dawn Staley might be the two best college coaches, men's and women's, and I don't discredit that statement. I mean, I look at the coaches right now. Jay Wright of Villanova is retired. Jim Boeheim of Syracuse is retired. Coach K of Duke is retired. Roy Williams of North Carolina is retired. Tony Bennett of Virginia is retired. Jim Larinaga of Miami is retired. And so I look at the coaches that are out there right now. I think Mark Few of Gonzaga, I think he has to be put up there because somehow Gonzaga looks like they're relatively untouched by NIL and the transfer portal. And so I look to Gonzaga, and I know Gonzaga had a couple guys leave and come to the ACC, but they're still Gonzaga. Like, even if the transfer portal affects them, I don't know if it affects them. So I look at Gonzaga and Mark Few. I look at Kelvin Sampson in Houston. I look at Dan Hurley in UConn. I would say, I mean, going across the country, I mean, obviously Todd Golden did a good job with Florida this year, right? So we'll see if that could continue. But when you're talking about years upon years of the best coaches that are currently in men's college basketball, it would be Mark Few of Gonzaga. It would be Kelvin Sampson of Houston. It would be Dan Hurley of UConn. I would say John Shire of Duke because they haven't missed a beat without Coach K. But would I put any of them above Gino Auriemma? No. Would I put any of them above Dawn Staley? I feel like I can maybe argue a few cases, but I think, to me, you got to look at college basketball as a whole. And if you do, then Gino's at the top of the mountain. Dawn's climbing it. And then I think there's a few college basketball, men's basketball coaches that are obviously making a case. But when you talk about level of consistency, Mark Few hasn't won a national championship yet. Kelvin Sampson hasn't won a national championship. I mean, Houston's never won one. So, it's like, even the coaches that I think are the best at their craft right now, Dawn Staley's got more championships and Gino's got more than everybody. So, and Dan Hurley this year, UConn struggled and they were an 8 seed and they fell to Florida, who won the national championship. So, I mean, they didn't do, it's not like they were what Dawn Staley did and they made it all the way to the end and they lost. They didn't make it to the end. So, I mean, I don't know if we can really sit here this morning and say right now in this moment that Gino and Dawn aren't at the top of the heap in men's and women's basketball. And I don't know if there's a lot of men's basketball coaches that would argue themselves over Dawn and Gino.
I don't know how you can. And you throw in the history-making factor and what they've meant to just women's basketball and the sport in general, right? You've got that factor. Plus you have if you look at the WNBA, you have all of these players coming from these programs are pro-ready and then making history in the WNBA side of things. And the WNBA, I think, is the toughest league to play in because there's only 144 spots. We're going to add some expansion, but you literally have to be the best in the world, and people are graduating after being coached by Dawn and being graduated after being coached by Gino. And they're the greatest names in the WNBA as they've gone through. And obviously Gino's got more time, so he's got more players on that list, but Dawn is producing on that same type of level where they don't skip a beat when they go to the WNBA. They're coming in and they're being able to, produce and play at a high professional level with the best in the world. And it's not by accident. And then you throw in what you were talking about too, about between transfer portal and whatnot. Nobody's leaving UConn.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's leaving South Carolina. They are staying. And so for them to be able to stay, it's because they know that there's something worth staying for beyond just the deals. They, obviously Dawn and Gina are helping with that, right? They're helping them navigate those waters, get their deals, make their money, help their families, have generational wealth, all that good stuff. But it's because of the people they're recruiting are also the right people that fit what they're doing, and they fit that staff, and they know that they're going to be taken care of and prepared. So why would they leave, right? They're bringing in very select, transfers on their side of it. Who they're bringing in fits that culture and fits that program history they're trying to create. So I think it's really, when you look at that big picture, yeah, you love, like, how can you not love listening and watching Mark Few and Kelvin Sampson? Like, they're excellent coaches. They're
Yeah.
doing it, but they're not at that same level as Don and Gino yet.
No, no. And it's a reality. So shout out to Dawn Staley. I know it's a tough morning, it's a tough couple days, but I know that she'll be back, and Gino's Gino, man. So with that being said, let's jump into some rapid fire. What's your first question for me?
My first question for you is, let's go with the who would win in a fight? A bear with wings or a shark with legs? And you're fighting both, like on a beach. There is water and land elements.
Okay. A bear with wings or a shark with legs? I'm going to say a shark with legs. Just too much teeth, too much going on, and if there's water involved, then I think the shark will best the bear with wings. Because the bear with wings, even when the bear's fighting, I don't know if the bear can do enough. So I'm going to say the shark. I'm going to say the shark with legs. My question back to you: what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
I'm gonna go. There was a random, I think I might have mentioned this story to you before, and it's a small one that just I end up thinking about randomly at random times. So there was a professor, an English professor at Marywood, and I was sitting in class and we were just talking about random whatever book we were talking about, something Shakespeare or whatever it was. And it was just one of those quick little before class starts or in between the sessions. And the professor was talking about when she's having a bad day and she's driving, she's changed her perspective instead of being like, okay, I got a red light, like, and being pissed off about that. How many times are you thankful when you get the green light? Right? So if you're driving and let's say you're in a hurry and you get a red light, you're gonna sit there, you're gonna like you were talking about last time, have that road rage, be like real annoyed about how things are going. But how many times when you're in a hurry and you get the green light, are you like, oh sweet, yes, that really helped me out. That's gonna keep me moving forward. Like you don't recognize that good. So you need to look and be conscious of where to find that, that thought of nope, this is something that's good, even though it seems small, because we let the little small bad affect so much throughout the day. Or when you are driving and somebody like does something real stupid and you're like, how the heck did they not even look and see me there? She's like, I also, in those moments, pretend that that person is having the worst moment of their life and we don't know whether they are or they're not. But maybe the reason that they didn't pay attention or see you is because they're on the way to go say goodbye to a grandparent in the hospital, or they're going and dealing with something on such an extraordinary level that it just took their attention for a hot second while they're driving. So that way, while you're going and somebody does something real stupid, don't assume the worst in them.
Yeah.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
So that was all in the same conversation. And it's something that, like, if I'm pulling up to the grocery store and I'm in a hurry and there happens to be like a front parking lot, like spot, and I'm just like, you know what? Shout out. Like, I give a little tap and I'm like, we're going to be happy that we found this when we maybe weren't feeling like parking at the end and walking and getting our steps in. Or when somebody cuts me off, it's like, nope, maybe they're having the worst day of their life. I don't need to make it worse.
Yeah, no, and that's true. And I've kind of learned that too. Is like you never know, what someone's going through, and you never know in that moment what's happening. So I think that's great advice. What's your next question for me?
Give me your best, like when we were younger, we played outside with like the neighborhood kids. Give me your best neighborhood kid story.
Oh, my best neighborhood kid story. What would that be? Huh. I would say I'm going back to like a bunch of different things. There's a lot of different things that I. So we played football in a church parking lot, and the end zones were ice. And I remember trying to tag somebody because we were playing two-hand touch, and I almost did a split in the end zone. That was one. I would say I was shooting threes. I was just out there shooting, and my one buddy was just letting me shoot, and my other buddy that's known me forever, he was like, you don't understand, like, he'll stay out there all day. Like, if you let him shoot, he'll shoot all day. So I think that one, I would think playing kickball. I miss playing kickball. So I'm going to say kickball. Yeah, I mean, just a lot of mom opening the door and being like, go play. And then you like went down the street and around the corner and you had your friends and you didn't have a cell phone and there's no parents there, but like they just trusted you would be okay. I think kids deserve to have that. I think people deserve to have that. And I just would love for that to come back. And I just miss that. I really do miss that for people. My question back to you, Hodge. You and I have known each other for a while. How would you describe me as a person? I could be putting myself on the real hot seat. I have no idea.
Oh gosh, no. I think the determined go-getter with, good heart and perspective are the first like four things that kind of pop up of, you were that way in college where you were constantly working and trying to get to the point that you are now. You were doing that when I barely knew you and I was just playing games and you were trying to cover our games, right? So it was obvious because I talk to other players now or I see at all these other schools, there's not people putting in the level of effort of what you did at that time. And that was, close to 15 years ago at this point when we were in school at the same time. So it was evident then that you were hardworking and dedicated and you had a vision to what you wanted to do. But it was wild to me that like, I'm the freshman and you're like talking to me or the sophomore or whatever when we first started connecting, just being like, oh, me? Why the hell me? Like you were able to, be kind, be driven, be able to do all the stuff that you were trying to do. And then now for us to be able to reconnect and be able to, without skipping a beat, even if it's been months because you're busy going, down to NFL games and trying to figure out what you need to, working at Syracuse, you can tell that you have a good heart and you care about people and you want to try to be able to combine those two things on the daily.
Well, I appreciate that very much so. I mean, I wish everybody knew my heart, but it's nice to know that you see that. I mean, I was raised a certain way and I've always had God in my life. My grandparents mean so much. My grandfather's passing away when I was 6 was heartbreaking, but I feel like they've raised me to this day. And then my G-mama, my mom's mom, I mean, she changed my life. She absolutely changed my life. And my dad's mom, too. I mean, everything that I've learned from them, and then to sit with my mom, I'm 39 years old, and my mom to this day can still sit with me and say something to me, and it can really get through to my heart. And the same for my dad. And so, I mean, I have to give credit to the people that have raised me. And in a world that really sometimes doesn't seem to want an honest, God-fearing person that tries to be good, to hear you say those words, it makes me feel good. It humbles me, Hodge. I'm trying to change the world in the best way that I know how. And to hear you say those things means a lot. So thank you for that.
Of course, man. I'm just stating the obvious over here.
So, your final question for me.
If you were a candy bar, what type of candy bar would you be and why?
Oh my goodness. If I was a candy bar, what type of candy bar would I be and why? I would be... Oh, man. I feel like I would be... I don't know. I would say probably a Fast Break or a Baby Ruth. I would be a Baby Ruth because my grandpa Cavino, my mom's dad, gave those to me, and I feel like we're the only two people that likes them. And then if it was, but like Fast Breaks are if I'm going to eat a candy bar now, which I really don't eat a lot of candy, if I'm going to eat a candy bar, it's going to be a Fast Break. And I think knowing how I am and knowing that I played basketball growing up and knowing that I just played a pickup game, shout out to Connor. I mean, him and I played this pickup game, and Hodge, I felt good because like I haven't shot. I used to play basketball every day, every single day, whether I was playing or not. Like I was like practicing all the time, and so to not have played in such a long time, and then he's like, "You want to go play basketball?" And I was like, "Sure." We had never played together before. We played horse, and I made this shot, and then he's like, "Can you show me how you did it?" And then I went and did it right after, and I made it again. And then the shot that I won horse on, I was at the top of the key. I dribbled to the right wing, and as I'm dribbling to the right wing, I'm letting go and I'm doing a fadeaway on the right side. And then he said, "Can you show it to me again?" And then so I went through the motions to show it to him, and I let go and I hit it again. And I just had a smirk on my face. And then I would also say, going off of the fast break and the connection of basketball, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I said I need 5 shots. In order to make one half court shot, I need five chances. And there's 3 gyms in central New York where I've hit a half court shot on my first try and I had a witness. Well, when I was playing with Connor a few days ago, I took 4 shots and I hit the rim and I almost made it. On the 5th one, I dropped it right through the net and I went up to him and slapped high five with him. I was like, "I told you I need 5." So I would probably say fast break just because I love basketball way too much. So I'd probably say fast break.
Nice.
My question back to you, my final question to you, Hodge. If you could go back in time and say something to yourself, where would you go back to in your life and what would you say?
I'd probably go back to, I'm trying to think of the exact spots. Like there's like a window of time where I'm like anywhere in there would be fine. But I would say probably at some point, maybe like my junior or senior year of high school, and I would tell myself to stop talking so negatively about myself to myself and to not dwell on all of the things that, I think are my fault or think the things that are, you know, horrible about me so that way I could disrupt that pattern of the negative self-talk that I had that I think really affected me as an athlete and then affected me off of the court because that became the normal way to talk to myself. So somewhere around there I would have that conversation about, what I'm trying to work on now where, it's looking bigger at the picture. It's not like, okay, not that like all right, you screwed up, so you're stupid. It's like, no, like that was hard and you just guessed wrong. Like that's okay. So trying to figure out a way to not be so mean to myself because I would never say that to anyone else. Like if you're struggling, I would never be like, well, yeah, it's because you're stupid. Like that would never even cross my mind as to the cause as to why, you were going through what you were going through. So it's not fair to me to do that to myself. And I should have worked on that, even though you know it's detrimental to yourself when you're doing it, but you've created that pattern and you figured out how to respond to that, right? It's like, all right, well, you're gonna tell me I can't. Well, now I'm going to prove to you that I can. But then you start creating those battles in your head of like, I can't, I can't, I can't, because you're trying to prove yourself wrong. And it's like you can use that as motivation when others are doing it, but to then self-create those scenarios to try to, you know, get yourself, prove yourself right or wrong or whatever it is. It just becomes such a mess that I wish I had the ability to go back and curb it a little bit more when I was younger, as opposed to now working through it this late, you know?
Yeah, and Hodge, I can agree with you. Unfortunately, I did the same thing. Unfortunately, I beat up on myself for a really, really, really long time. And I still have my moments, but I know who I am. And I now know who I am, and I look back at those times and I feel the same way you feel. It kind of takes the breath out of my lungs. Like, why did I do that? You just said it. I would never speak that way to anybody else. I would never say that to anybody else. And if somebody messed up, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's because you're stupid and that's because you suck. Like, I don't know why people do that. I don't know why you and I were so hard on each other, or on ourselves, I should say. But what I can say to you is you have had no reason to be. You were an incredibly tough basketball player. You are the type of human being that I'm grateful to have as a friend. You can not talk to me forever, and then you can say one sentence. I mean, you and I were talking off the air before the show, and you were telling me my worth in like 2 sentences. So any person that can look you in the eye and say, I know who you are, I know your value, I know how important you are, I want you to give that back to yourself, because you should have that. I mean, you're one of the people in this world that I feel like I can call and say, Hodge, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling, I'm beating up on myself, and that you would just turn around and say, no, this is who you are. This is what I know you to be. And I think it's fair for me to say this morning that, I mean, you have been kind, you have been hardworking, you have always come through, you've been a friend every step of the way. You treat people with respect, with goodness, you give people chances. You live a life that people should look at and value and emulate. And so whatever you said to yourself in the past, don't ever say that in the present or the future. If you do, then I'll be standing up against that, because the reality of it all is you're one of the people that people can lean on, and you have no idea how important that is right now.
No, I appreciate that very much.
So that coming from Caitlin Hadzimichalis, the best. And Jerry Hart made a statement here, and I'm going to read off what Jerry said. Jerry's words were, "You guys are the bee's knees. Here's a pair that a full house couldn't beat." So with that being said, Hodge, as always, I appreciate your time, appreciate your positivity, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Yeah, hang in there, my man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. That coming from Caitlin Hadzimichalis. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call. When we come back, for those of you waiting patiently, we have our Binghamton special here with Binghamton men's golf student athlete Brandon Connor. You do not want to miss this conversation about life. There is so many layers to the conversation that's about to come up. Do not miss a second of it. That'll be here on Wake Up Call right after this fast break.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks comes to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. For all your sports card and trading card needs, head to GG Cards and Breaks Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5 and you can find hockey, soccer, basketball, football, baseball, as well as Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Disney Lorcana. GG Cards and Breaks helps us all be big kids. No matter what our age is, it helps us keep that kid spirit, and I can't thank Josh Anthony and the team enough for that. Go to 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, and let them know that DT sent you. Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Coming out of that fast break, we have the opportunity to share with you this conversation in the Bearcat Breakroom. You know, on Wake Up Call, we are inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, and Bearcat Breakroom comes to you in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with the Binghamton University Bearcats. I'm honored and privileged to have Brandon Connor here with me from Binghamton's men's golf team, and we are here inside the 2024-25 season. Brandon, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing very well. So, Brandon, I got to ask you, why become a Bearcat? How did that happen?
Well, there's no direct reason for it. I was just started recruiting for out of high school, looking for somewhere to play Division I golf and get a great education. And my dad had connections up here. I'm originally from Cincinnati, so not too close, but this had a great business program here at Binghamton and great golf program to tag along with that. And ultimately, it came down to getting a good offer here, and I chose it, and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, like you said, coming from Cincinnati, Ohio, what's it like to be away from home? Where you're about, what, are we talking like 8 hours away or something of that?
Yeah, it's like 8.5 hour drive, yeah.
Okay, so what is life like being 8.5 hours away from home?
Got used to it. I mean, I'm not one to be too emotional about things. I just kind of go with the flow, whatever's in front of me. I mean, it's definitely weird at times. Most of my friends go home on weekends or we'll hang out in breaks, and I'm usually out here golfing or doing something. But I enjoy the different change of culture a little bit, get out in the world, and it's been good.
Similarities, differences between Cincinnati, Ohio, and Binghamton, New York?
It's not too much different, honestly. I mean, Cincinnati's a bigger city, but I live in suburbs. It's definitely not a huge difference, just a fractionally colder. A little more snow.
Okay. A little more. So, what about the food? When you think about Cincinnati being home, is there a place that you're like, you miss that you can't wait to go back to?
There's a big place called Skyline Chili in Cincinnati, which is everyone's favorite, but I actually can't have any of that, so I don't miss that. Anyone from Cincinnati would miss that, but for me, I just like to eat pasta or whatever. I'm pretty bland.
Pretty bland. So what's on your pasta? Give me your favorite pasta dish.
I usually just go for some. I'll go with bow tie pasta, red sauce, maybe some mushrooms as well. Big mushroom guy.
Okay.
Again, pretty bland, but.
Have you always been that way? Have you kind of just been like a simpleton when it comes to your food?
I'd say so. I mean, I can't have scotch because I'm allergic to dairy, so
Okay.
I'm not too into other things. There's less things I can have, really, so I just kind of eat whatever I can, but yeah, I've not always been pretty just eat whatever.
So for you, you think about like that culture, you think about being at home. We've talked a little bit about food, family being back at home. What do you miss the most of, let's say, a Tuesday night? Tuesday night, you come home after school. What do you miss the most on a Tuesday?
I think I missed a little bit of just kind of the scheduled high school routine with how I played 3 sports, so pretty much every night I was practicing on a Tuesday night or something, then doing a little bit of homework and maybe hopping on the computer and talking to some of my friends, play a game. But now it's just a little more on my own. Obviously, I mean, I got friends here and stuff, but just a little less schedule, less simple.
Yeah, and now when we look at, we go back to your time at Binghamton, and I go back to your freshman season, 2022-23. You were in 9 tournaments as a freshman. and you were named the Big Sky Conference Performer of the Week on March 22nd and April 12th. And then you had posted 3 top 20 finishes as a freshman. You finished a team best, tied for 11th at the Villanova Invitational back on April 10th and 11th in the 2022-23 season. And then looking at some of these other pieces here, named to the Big Sky Conference All-Academic Team and member of both the spring and fall AD honor roll with a 3.3 GPA. So going back to your freshman season in the classroom and on the golf course, what were your favorite moments? Because I'm seeing a bunch of successful pieces here, bullet points, but bring those bullet points to life. What were some of your favorite pieces of being a freshman at Binghamton?
Freshman was a fun time. I mean, it's definitely a whole different environment, getting to a dorm, getting be with your teammates all the time, different, obviously, schedule, not as scheduled golf all the time, but I really enjoyed it. I felt like, especially in the spring, as you're reading it off, I hit my stride a little more, kind of found my schedule, was able to work pretty hard in the off season. I mean, I loved our trip to Arizona for the conferences at the end of the year. That was a ton of fun, playing well at Villanova as well. So I think I just learned a lot about myself that year.
Yeah, and then we look at your sophomore season. You competed in 11 tournaments, finished tied for second at the Matthews Auto Collegiate Golf Invitational, which is at home in Binghamton. Shot the lowest score through 36 holes relative to par in program history at 137, 7 under par. And then shot 66, 5 under par in the final round of the Cornell Fall Invitational to finish tied for 12th. And that round was tied for the second lowest score relative to par in program history. So we go back and we look at last season, and you have the lowest score in program history at the time. Then you go to another event, have the second lowest score in program history, only as a sophomore. So, I mean, obviously you elevate your game from being a freshman to a sophomore, but what it means to you to set program benchmarks for Binghamton men's golf.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to hear. I mean, it's not something that I ever like truly look at and like set goals for. I just kind of every day try and keep improving myself and trying to see what I can do. But it's definitely really cool. I mean, that at the home tournament, shooting 7 under was pretty good. I mean, I played super well the first day, went bogey free. That was great, and then followed up sleeping on a lead, being able to post another under par round was great. I mean, yeah, being able to leave my mark has always been a goal. It's just not something you think about until you reflect on it later.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's not something you think about until afterwards. So have you given yourself any time to think about these moments? Am I saying them to you and you're going, oh my goodness, I forgot about that? Or is this something that you actually gave yourself a little bit of time to think about?
I think I've given myself a decent amount of time because I'm one that kind of does look at a bunch of stats and analytical, and I've looked at all that. And yeah, I mean, it's always cool, but I mean, I've also had some tougher tournaments, so I want to keep improving on that and being able to consistently shoot that would be my ultimate goal here moving forward.
So for you, when we look at your career up to this point, Brandon, what is one of those moments of adversity at Binghamton that you feel like you've really learned from? Because I feel like without adversity in life, we don't know who we are. We have no idea what we're capable of becoming. So go to a moment of adversity for you at Binghamton that you feel like has made you better.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty. I've had plenty of bad rounds. I feel like one especially was last the last tournament of last fall at out on Long Island, Sabonic. I shot 70 in the first round, was T4 something near the leaderboard. It was a great round. Probably one of the toughest courses we play. And the next round, I went out and shot 85. Just kind of got punched in the face. And I felt like that definitely, especially that was the last turn of the fall, kind of got a tough way to go into the off season. But I was able to kind of understand a little more about how to handle being in the lead and how to just play better in the future, really.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, you've had plenty of moments of adversity, but they teach you something. How do you respond in the moment to it? Are you one of those people that when adversity hits, it's kind of like chaotic and then it calms down? Or have you taught yourself how to calm down through it?
I like to think I'm pretty calm. I mean, I don't see myself from the outside, and I definitely get mad at certain thing at when anything goes bad. But I think definitely over time, over my years here, I've been able to process it a little better, and just kind of just you can be mad for a few seconds, but it's still the next shot is there's so much importance, and you're playing for the team more than yourself, and it's a lot of things that matter instead of focusing on something you can't control anymore, the past.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a big thing that goes beyond golf, that whatever happens in the moment, right? A mistake that you made, a problem that you have, you got to let it go because the past is the past. So many people in life, beyond sports, don't let things go. They live in the past, they don't live in the moment, they worry about everything that's happened before and they can't let go of it. What words of advice would you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, like we just talked about, like if you put an analogy for golf, like sure you made a double on the last hole, but at the end of the day, when you're looking back at your round, you'd rather shoot 76 instead of 79, making that double turn into a few shots worse later down the road. It's just being able to move on to the next thing. You're gonna have adversity, like we talked about, always in life, and it's about how you respond and not what happened in the moment.
Yeah, and again, I mean, Wake Up Call is called Wake Up Call here on the show for a reason, not just because it's on in the morning, and it's also where sports meets life. And so we're talking about a life topic right now. You said how you respond in the moment isn't, like that's not the end all be all because, right, we can all have poor responses in the moment. You might have a bad shot and you might, take your club and hit it down onto the ground. You might have one of those weak moments or something like that. People have moments. We all have times in our lives where we don't take a good shot, right? I played basketball growing up. So I still remember there was a game where I had two good shots, right? I was on the left side of the top of the key. I took a shot, I made a three. I took another shot, I made that three. Then I thought about it, and then my head said, you have to make it. You have to make it. In order for you guys to get into this game, you got to make this three. And guess what? I missed it. So, playing free, understanding that mistakes happen, but then not going on to the next game and going, hey, remember when you missed that shot? I mean, living in the moment right now and looking big picture, you and I are talking about sports, but we're also talking about life. You can have a really bad moment, but it shouldn't define you. Can you go into that a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I mean, like you talked about in the basketball there, I mean, that applies so much in golf as well. Like, you got to be able to just kind of trust what you've done throughout your life. Like, don't think about everything that has to go right in that moment for something to go right. Trust your training, trust your preparation, trust everything you've done to be qualified for whatever you're doing, and being able to perform in that moment and just have faith in yourself really is the ultimate key.
So what would you say to someone that would judge you for a moment in time? Because I feel like we live in a world where you're judged so easily for like one moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, that's I just say that that's their opinion. I mean, you can think whatever you like, but at the end of the day, you gotta believe in yourself and do what's best for you, and being able to forget the moments and think about the big picture, prepare for everything is more important at the end of the day.
Yeah. Because for you and for anything in life, you got to go on to the next hole, right? You got to go on to the next thing and you got to be able to kind of shake it off. So golf can be a very frustrating sport and it can be a sport that sometimes seems impossible. Why did you want to play a sport that it does feel almost impossible? I mean, I say it all the time to my dad because my dad loves golf. I say, Dad, we're 300 yards away from a hole, 500 yards away from a hole. The hole is down and curved. It's down and to the right. There's sand everywhere. There's wind blowing. I can't see anything. There's water. How in the heck can somebody put this ball from this tee into that hole from 500 yards away with all of this stuff going on? I mean, golf feels more impossible than possible. So I'd love to get your thoughts on it and why you decided to play an impossible sport.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it like that. And I mean, at the end of the day, like we've said, you got to focus on what you can control in the moment and the shot, and performing that to the best of your abilities. And I feel like every golfer is a little bit crazy. I feel like I've always been a perfectionist in a way, so I feel like that has drew me to golf. My dad always played golf throughout him growing up, so that drew me to it. And yeah, I can't tell you a specific moment where I'm like, oh, I want to play golf, but playing it throughout my childhood and having that pursuit of excellence has just drew me to it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that pursuit of excellence. I mean, are you better now? Because, like you said, I'm kind of a perfectionist. How do you balance that? Because I can understand that in moments. Like I grew up, I wanted 100 on every test. If I got a 98, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to be complacent with 98. I want 100. So I can understand the world of wanting to be a perfectionist and really not holding anybody else to that, but holding yourself to that. How have you found a way to kind of live in the reality that you're not going to be perfect, but then also want the best out of yourself? Because I feel like I had to learn, like, I can't be perfect, but I should also demand greatness. So how have you kind of learned how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all still learning that, and I definitely haven't perfected it, but I'd say just being able to take one day at a time and know that you put your best foot forward every day, trying to work on the best things possible, analyzing everything I can, focusing when I'm practicing, and just being able to do the best I can that day and know, even if it's not perfect, because it's golf, you're never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
I did all I could.
And we're talking about a mental game, right? Golf is such a mental game. So mental health, mental toughness, how does the mind work into this for you?
Oh, the mind is everything in golf. Like you said, like if you think about golf as you got to hit a ball into a hole 300 yards away, wind, water, you can go crazy. And you just got to really keep yourself calm and focused inside and just think about the shot ahead of you. Think about how all the conditions to make this shot go in the perfect spot possible. And I mean, if you start thinking big picture and all the details of it, you'll never be able to focus and perform your best.
So when you're breaking down a hole, like you and I are going up to tee off on hole 13, how do you break it down so that you're not worried about the big picture? Or not the big picture, but to, like you said, when you think about it's 500 yards away and it's around the corner and it seems such a daunting task, how do you set your mind to the right place when you step up to the tee?
Well, we always have a practice round the round before, so you're able to see the course and kind of map out a track that you want to do. So I'll look at how wide the fairway is, any water or out of bounds, where trees are, and I'll pick the best strategy of how far to hit it and where I'm trying to aim. And at that point, you just got to trust your preparation. And I know that from all my practice and all my preparation that hitting driver at this certain spot is the best possible outcome 100% of the time. So I'm going to aim at that spot and do the best that I can.
And so, like you said, you have that practice round before. How have you evolved, Brandon, from who you were as a golfer 2 years ago to who you are right now?
I think just honestly learning more of that preparation. In high school, I hadn't learned as much. I hadn't spent as much time on it. You just have fun with it, and obviously I'm trying to play my best and working on my swing all the time, but not really thinking about all the analytical things. There's so many things that go into how exactly far away to aim from a pin, how there's a statistical process of how to re-putt if you want to. There's so many different things that go into it, and I feel like I've just soaked up a lot over the past 2 years, and being able to put that to use has been a huge asset for me.
So, driving the ball, putting the ball. If it was for $1 million, would you rather be on the tee or would you rather be the one sending it home on the green? Which one do you trust yourself more for $1 million?
Definitely driving. I've always liked it. I've always been kind of someone who swings hard, and if anything, putting's my weakness. So, I mean, I like to think I can make the putt, but I trust my driving more.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So we take a look at getting in the top 10 after the first day at the Testudo Cup. And first and foremost, congratulations. So, within striking distance of first place as you finish the first 2 rounds of the inaugural Testudo Cup, tied for sixth out of 78 golfers over this past weekend. You began the day by shooting 70, 2 under par in the opening round, posting 4 birdies in the first 18 holes, following up by shooting 71, 1 under par with an additional 3 birdies to finish the day at 141, 3 under par, and 4 strokes behind the leader. I mean, I'm going to look at this and say this is amazing. I'm going to look at this and say 7 birdies is pretty incredible. And the fact that you're within striking distance and you're in the top 10 of 78 golfers. But I'd love to get your thoughts about what's gone on most recently.
Yeah, I'd say that day was great. I mean, I kind of struggled the past weekend at our first tournament, and talked to my coach, kind of figure out a few things. Honestly, with my strategy and kind of where I was hitting it, I felt like I was hitting it good the first week and wasn't getting anything out of it. And then I hit it pretty well this week and was able to kind of play a little smarter. And then my putter worked well the first day, and was able to put together a few good rounds. It's nice to do that.
And you spoke about your coach, Coach Bernie here. What has he taught you? What is it about Coach B that's been so helpful to you?
Yeah, he's just kind of been a great mentoring figure for me the whole 3 years now. He's a great guy to be around. He makes you laugh at the right time, but can also get down to business and just kind of shows you the ropes. And he's been great.
So for you, like you said, shows you the ropes, knows when to joke around. When does he joke? Like when does he catch you? It's like, is he one of those people that you don't expect it and he just catches you at a time where you're like, Coach, you're crazy? Or is it something that kind of rumbles and you feel it coming?
Uh, it could be a bit of both. I'd say
All right.
he typically he typically kind of says some things out of the blue, and you're like focusing on a shot, and he'll just say something dumb, and it's kind of funny.
Okay.
But I mean, he says it at the right times, and he knows when maybe not to, and maybe focus up. But he can make you laugh at the golf course too, because it's a game. You always need to laugh sometimes.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's a game and you need to laugh. And that, again, goes right back to life in and of itself. How have you learned to kind of let something be what it is? To have that moment of instead of, throwing your club or screaming instead of having a Happy Gilmore moment, how do you kind of just sit and say, you know what? I'm going to laugh it off. It happens. That's life. I got it. Like, how have you learned to roll with the punches?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. I feel like maybe I get a bad break or something. You just gotta, at the end of the day, realize what's one shot gonna do for you. And I mean, all the luck is likely gonna even out eventually. So if you get one lip out, maybe the next one's might lip in. And you typically don't notice the good breaks you get. Maybe it bounces just slightly in the right way. You get in the fairway or get in the green. And you don't really notice those as much, but you always notice the time it gets a bad bounce into the rough or
Yeah.
bounces into the water somehow. So you just gotta understand the big picture of it at the end of the day.
Before we jump into rapid fire and put each other on the hot seat, best shot you've ever had?
uh, hmm. Let's think. I mean, I trying to think of any like great in under competition. There's probably a few. I can't think of any. I probably just my hole. I've had a few hole in ones. I'd say the longest one was about 180 to summer turn a few years ago. It's a pretty good one.
Okay.
One's help.
Is there a shot that you can look back on and laugh about? We talked about laughing something off. So do you have one where you just shook your head and you're like, well, whatever? So,
Yeah, I mean, I think I had one this week. I had
okay.
a 3-wood into a par 4, and it was just kind of it was misty or into a par 5. I mean, it was kind of misty in the air, and the fairway was wet, and I was trying to kind of carve it around a tree, and I think the must have just been so wet in the fairway that the ball just went way right, and I was like, that I don't know how that happened. So that's what it is. I'm just kind of move on from there.
Well, here with Brandon Connor in this edition of the Bearcat Breakroom, speaking about how sports meets life, and inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios on Wake Up Call, it's time to put each other on the hot seat. We can ask each other anything in rapid fire. It could be sports related, it could be life related, it could be literally anything. Brandon, you get to ask me the first question. Fire when ready.
I'll go with. We've been talking about it today. How do you feel like you roll with the punches in life? How do you kind of put it in perspective for yourself?
Well, Brandon, you're asking me this question at a really hard time in my life. So I would say to you that how do I roll with the punches? I know who I am. And I think I will tell you this. I think in life, in the heat of the moment, you might make mistakes. I'm Italian and Hispanic. We're passionate. But I think what I've learned about myself is there's so many things that I've kind of realized that you can't do. And, I come from really strong people, my grandparents, my parents, and I think what they've taught me in life is that you got to pull back your words sometimes. And I think there's times where I have, and I think there's times where I haven't. I think that there's things I say in the moment where I could have been a lot better at it. I think one of the things that I've learned in life is, people kind of poke at you, and I don't know if they do it because of their past or they poke at you because they want to kind of just see what you're made of. But I think what I've learned in life is that I've learned to forgive, and I look at the big picture. And so a lot of what you said earlier on in the conversation is if you're a good person, right, and the majority of the time people can lean on you, you're going to hold them, you're going to talk to them, you're going to be there for them, you're going to pray for them, and then in the heat of a moment you say something stupid. I would say to those people, look at the big picture. If the big picture is this is a loving, caring person, but in this moment you just said something to them or you did something to them that just really just hurt them, and in the moment of pain they responded, I would say look at the big picture. So, I mean, how do I roll with the punches? I know who I am. And I know that I love incredibly hard. I work incredibly hard. I never think anybody outworks me, Brandon. I don't think anybody can outlove me. I don't think anybody can out help people the way that I help people. I think that if you are connected to me and you need me in the 11th hour, if I don't know what to do, how to do it, or when to do it, I will figure it out. I think that I am the best friend to have in a moment where you need somebody and you don't know how to do it. So how have I learned to roll with the punches and how have I learned things about life? I would say look at the big picture and understand that everybody makes mistakes. And if you can't love people through their pain, then you can't really love people.
It's a great response, and I mean, yeah, being able to stick to who you are and you know who you are, definitely dark times is the best thing you can do, and it's a great response.
Thank you. A question back to you, Brandon. If one song followed you through your entire life and it just played when you walked into the room, what song would you want to play to show people Brandon Connor?
I think back to a song I listened to so many times too in about eighth grade is "Believer" by Imagine Dragons. Just a great upbeat anthem and kind of speaks of just who I am. I always am knocking on the door and always working hard to achieve what I can.
I love
It's a great
that.
song.
I love that choice. And Imagine Dragons, you like Believer. I like the song Thunder, where the lyrics are like everybody thought. Well, let me get the exact lyrics because I know the end of it, but I want to make sure I don't mess up the exact lyrics right before. So Imagine Dragons, who sings Believer, also sings Thunder, and
Yep.
there's a song with kids were laughing in my classes when I was scheming for the masses. Who do you think you are? Dreaming about being a big star. They say you're basic. They say you're easy. You're always riding in the back seat. Now I'm smiling from the stage while you were clapping in the nosebleeds. So that one
Yeah.
always speaks to me. I want to go to Believer. And is there a certain part lyrically in the song Believer that hits you some kind of way?
Mm. I honestly haven't listened to it in a while, so I'd have to go back through. I can't give you a specific lyric.
Well, I'm gonna hit you with a couple things that are said, and after I read it, you can tell me, okay?
All right.
First things first, I'm gonna say all the words inside my head. I'm fired up and tired of the way that things have been, the way that things have been. Second thing second, don't you tell me what you think that I could be. I'm the one at the sail. I'm the master of my sea. I was broken from a young age, taking my sulking to the masses, writing my poems for the few. They look at me, shook to me, feeling me, singing from heartache, from the pain, taking my message from the veins, speaking my lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the pain. You made me a believer. You break me down and build me up, believer. Oh, let the bullets fly, let them rain. My life, my love, my drive, it came from pain.
I would say that second part about being the driver of my own boat at the sea or something like that. I feel like that speaks to me a lot. I mean, golf is an individual sport, and I feel like I've been kind of tried my own way through college golf, but it's been a blast, and I will continue to work until I can't anymore.
I love it. From Brandon Connor, I'm the one at the sail, I'm the master of my sea.
Yeah.
What's your second question for me?
That's a different note. How's your March Madness bracket looking? Who's your champion?
Oh, I'm really mad at John Calipari. So, when I was a kid, Brandon, I was watching the 1996 Final Four. My hometown Syracuse was in it, and Rick Pitino beat John Calipari, and then Rick Pitino and Kansas went up against Syracuse in the championship game. And, or was it Rick Pitino? Or no, was it Kentucky? Might have been Kentucky. Not Kansas, Kentucky. So they go up against each other in there. So Rick Pitino had bested John Calipari in the NCAA tournament. Well, this time around, in the round of 32, we have this situation of having John Calipari with Arkansas for the first season and Rick Pitino in his second season at St. John's. Well, I had St. John's winning the championship. And so my bracket actually looked really good, except for the fact that my champion lost in the round of 32. I was right on a lot of things. I did better in the women's bracket, but on the men's side of things, I thought St. John's was going to do it. I rode with St. John's. I know that they were like an underdog, even though they were a 2 seed. But I will tell you this. 2 years ago, I wrote on a napkin, I wrote Houston no matter what. And so to see Houston get, all this way 2 years later, I feel great about it. I got to interview Kelvin Sampson during the NCAA tournament this year. I got to speak with the student athletes this year. I've spoken with Kelvin Sampson for multiple years now. So, I mean, my bracket's not looking too pretty, but I do think St. John's will be back.
Yeah, it's cool. I actually do have Houston winning, so somehow I row with them. I did have St. John's in the finals though as well, so that took a toll early, and I struggled in the beginning part, but I've done all right in the later portion of the bracket.
Fair enough. So I'm going to go back to food for you, Brandon. Since you're a simpleton when it comes to food, I want to go to the other side of the question. What is one food that you've had that you just wish never existed? You tasted it, and then you said to yourself, if I could erase this food, I would erase it.
It's funny because you can ask all my friends. I hate tomatoes, but I mean I like tomato sauce and ketchup. But I loved ketchup when I was younger, but I think it has to be tomatoes. They're on everything, and I hate them so much.
Okay, so tomatoes.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. See, I love smashing them up and putting them in sauce, but I can't stand eating them by themselves.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, I love the sauce of them, but just the taste of them, I can't get it. I don't understand.
Fair enough. Your last question for me.
What has been your favorite part of following Binghamton athletics lately?
I would say it's all of you. You know, I wanted to work with Binghamton for a long time, and now that we're in year 2 of this exclusive multimedia marketing partnership, I just love this. I love hearing the stories. I love knowing how you think about life. How do you think about your sport? What makes you tick? I mean, obviously from this conversation you can realize that I'm not just about statistics and about you had a good game or you had a good shot. You know, you and I have talked more about life than we've simply talked about golf. And so I love learning about the people and your why and who you are and why you are. And I just think there's incredible people on campus at Binghamton. And so it's been my absolute pleasure to get to know your stories and get to cheer you on. And now that I've had this conversation with you, Brandon, now I know you. I know you a little bit better, which means I'm going to cheer you on a little bit louder. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, credit to you. I'm not too easy to open up to, so you've definitely gotten to know me probably more than most people have, but happy to do it. It's been fun.
I appreciate the fact that you were willing to be open with me. My final question to you, Mr. Connor, is if you and I were going to make a movie, because I am a screenwriter, I do like to work on things. If you and I were to make a movie, what job? It's going to be a comedy. You and I are going to be in a funny movie. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be fun. What job would we have? And where would we have it? So paint me a picture of it's a comedy starring Brandon Connor and Dan Tortora. This is our job. This is our profession. And then this is where we're going to be. Like, what city are we going to be in?
It's a deep question. I mean, since I'm a golfer, I guess I think of golf stuff. I don't know. We could both be maybe something off like a caddy shack. We could both be working in the pro shop, and we could be up here in Binghamton, New York.
All right.
Doing whatever. I'm not too creative, honestly. So
we could be working in a pro shop like Caddyshack up in Binghamton. I'm down with it. I'm down to do something like that for a Bearcat here in Brandon Connor and all the work that he's done and this conversation. Bearcat Breakroom, Binghamton Men's Golf. Support them in this 2024-25 season. Support Brandon and all of his teammates, Coach Bernie and the crew, and make sure you show love to the Binghamton Bearcats. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, this is Wake Up Call. And Brandon, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. I appreciate you having me. It was fun.
Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McNerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Brian and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Brian and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Brian's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Brian's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business, had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees, and as much as I enjoyed the experience I had, there's something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York to launch Servomation. It was back in 2007. When we first started the business in 2007, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There's a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience. It's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really changed the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allowing customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servomation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored water machine, so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean to cup coffee machine. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. In a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we are a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I can tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're gonna be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever gonna have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Avicolli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicolli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicolli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes. And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. It's now time for us to get into the ingredients to success, proudly presented by the fantastic team at Avicolli. So as we're here inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I thank you for tuning in to Wake Up Call. And like I said, it is now time for the Ingredients to Success, proudly presented by Avicolli's. Avicolli's on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York. And Avicolli's open 7 days a week for you now that they're open on Monday. Today's topic for the Ingredients to Success, the moment versus the big picture. The moment versus the big picture. There's so many things that happen in life in an instant, in a moment, right? But we look at the big picture. You know, you get into an argument with your mom and she says something to you, you say something to her, but then you look at the big picture. You look at the fact that she was there for you. You look at the fact that she loves you. You look at the fact that when you needed her, she shows up. So you take that one moment in time, that hurtful moment, you work through that moment, but you apologize and you look at the big picture. We look in the sports world and we look at Michael Jordan. People know Michael Jordan to be the greatest player to ever play basketball. But Michael Jordan will tell you that he's missed so many shots. He got cut from his high school basketball team. There's plenty of people that didn't believe in Michael Jordan. And if they had taken him for that moment, for that one missed shot, for that time when he came out of retirement and wore 45 and he didn't seem to be himself, if they had taken him for a moment instead of the big picture, they wouldn't have seen who Michael truly is. You take Syracuse, right? There's 4 seasons in Syracuse. It snows sometimes. But if you take Syracuse for just the snow and just the cold and not the big picture, you wouldn't see the changing of the leaves, which is beautiful. You wouldn't see the spring and the melting of the snow and the growing of the flowers, the beautiful roses and sunflowers and everything that you get to see. And you wouldn't get to see the summer, the 90-degree heat, the going to the beach, the laying by the pool. See, life is a connection of moments, but it is simply not one. You know, and I look to my life and I look to mistakes that I made in my life and I think about Jesus in the Bible and I think to myself, you know, there's moments where I've gotten upset. There's moments where I've reacted, where I've said something or done something I shouldn't have. And then I look to Jesus and I look to when he got upset in the synagogue. I think it was the synagogue or the temple. They were selling things in this holy place, and he didn't want them to do that. He didn't want them to be making money inside of this house of God. So he went into the room and he knocked over all the tables. That was not Jesus-like, right? That was not God-like. To go in there and just flip tables over, to just knock everything over and cause a commotion. Jesus showed anger. He showed frustration. And if we thought of Jesus for that one moment, if we took him for only that moment of frustration or anger, would we really know him? Is there anybody that goes through life without a mistake? Is there anybody that goes through life without saying something mean in the heat of the moment? Is there anybody that goes through life without a blemish? None of us are perfect. And I think for so long in my life, I tried to be. I tried to be perfect. I tried to say the right things. I tried to do the right things. I put myself on the back burner. I let people hurt me. I allowed people to use me and abuse me and treat me like just a throwaway towel, right? Use the towel to wipe off your face and throw it in the garbage. I allowed friends to do that. I allowed family to do that. I allowed romantic relationships to do that. In some cases, I allowed businesses to do that. I was trying so hard to be everybody's everything that I became my nothing. I lost sight of myself. I lost sight of my identity. And what I learned about life is I cannot bring about perfect moments. I can only bring about the best that I can in the moment, and when I don't have my best moment, to apologize. I've seen people hurt people in life and they never apologize. They never look inward. It's never their fault. They're selfish. They're self-loathing. They're self-seeking. So I'm going to read you something that the Bible says. Not me. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not some historian somewhere. I'm going to read you how God describes love. And this is not just romantic love. This is not just friendship. This is not just family. This is love. So I'm going to read the whole thing because we don't always read the whole thing. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but I do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies they will cease, where there are tongues they will be stilled, where there is knowledge it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. That is 1 Corinthians 13 from the Bible. So if people want to not believe anything that anyone says or does, that is a message from God. That is a biblical message. The moment is but a moment. The big picture is what matters. How somebody treats you overall in the big picture is what matters. That is what I hold on to. That is what matters to me. My grandmother and I had moments where we disagreed. Closest person in my life. If I looked at her and said, wow, my grandmother was awesome until the one time she yelled at me, now she's a terrible person, I would have missed out on one of the greatest people in the world. I know one thing about life. Love is the greatest gift you can give someone. And when you give it to someone and you mean it, you stick by it. You hold true to it, even when it's hard. Anyone can love when it's easy. Anyone can show up when it's easy. Anyone can be there for you when it's easy. Because easy is what a lot of people want. But when love is hard, when forgiveness is hard, when patience is hard, that is when true comes out. When life isn't easy, when people say things that are hurtful, when people do things that are hurtful, love is the conqueror. So I say to those that have said the words, I love you, if you mean it, show it. Make it through the hard times and give. Because when someone says I love you, they best mean it. With that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning into today's broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I thank you for being with us. I thank all of our incredible partners from New York to North Carolina, Brooklyn Pickle, Southern Pines, 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. I want to thank our partners here in Central and Upstate New York, Great Lakes, Honda City, Carvel, DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Servo Mation, Ma and Pa's, Avicolli's, Mother's Cupboard, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Pizza Man, Brian's Landing, and our exclusive multimedia marketing partnerships with the Lemoyne College Dolphins, Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats, the Syracuse, and the Binghamton University Bearcats. You can find them all by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell. Of course, our Lemoyne playlist is there, our BSC Syracuse playlist, and our Binghamton playlist. You can also find all of our partners on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage. And for more information on the Dolphins, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. For the Bobcats, go to Syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And for the Bearcats, go to BinghamtonBearcats.com. With that being said, God bless, no stress, do your best. And I hope that today love prevails. God bless you all. Be good.